A little backstory. I work in a business company. Well, more specifically, I'm the founder of the company. My apartment was an hour away from the office, so I rented a house just near the office in order to save time and be efficient. It's been about 11 months since I've been living there. So, this happened 2 months ago. I was sitting on my veranda, reading the newspaper, when I saw a truck parked in front of the house next door. A man in his early 30s or so came out of the house and instructed the workers to move his stuff inside. That house had been empty for quite some time, so I thought it was good to have someone in a similar age group who you can just chill with. He noticed me and waved immediately. I waved back. And then he returned to giving instructions, and we never really got the chance to talk. A few weeks later, we came out of the house at the same time. We waved at each other and got in our respective cars. And then we took the same route and parked in the same parking lot of the same office building. I was surprised. I didn't really know him. Perhaps he was a new hire in a different department? I got out of the car and he waved again and asked, "You work here?" I nodded yes. I wanted to talk a bit more, but I got an important call, so I signaled him to leave. I didn't know his name, so I asked my assistant for the names of the new hires. Eventually, I found his file and realized he was just hired a week ago as an assistant writer. That made sense. It was also the reason why I never saw him on the job. A tiny detail. My office building has 12 floors. The first 3 floors are reserved for customer service and PR section, management services, and general services. The next 4 were for executive, media, and research sector. And the last 3 floors were for the HR, legal affairs, the COO, and the CEO. The rest of the area was given to different management. The man worked on the second floor. The rest of the days, we always said hi to each other, but there was no way for us to communicate. We always missed each other, and when I got home, I wanted to be alone. I thought of just visiting him on a Sunday, but I was usually at my parents' house on the weekends. After a few days or so, we met during lunch and he greeted me. I greeted him back and asked him how he was, and how everything was going. He asked for my name, and without thinking much, I accidentally gave him my nickname. He asked me which floor I worked on, and I told him that I was on the top floor. Upon hearing that, his face twisted a bit. I thought we were friendly and could become great friends, but I suppose not. I understood very well that he didn't like that I was in some important position. It wasn't an unusual thing. It was sort of the thing you'd expect after experiencing it so many times. However, I would be lying if I said it didn't hurt me a little bit. For the next few days, I ignored him. He pretty much ignored me too. I was living in my office by then. It was a really hectic month. We had a deadline and everyone in the research and media team was working really hard. As I was returning, I saw my neighbor standing in front of the parking lot. His car was parked near mine. He was smoking a cigarette and scrolling something on his phone. He greeted me politely, so I thought I should return the favor. "Hey, we're going for a team dinner tonight," he said. I didn't ask, but I guess that was his way of making a conversation. That's great. Have fun, I said as I sat in the car. "So I've heard," he said as I started the engine, "that there's an important client coming for a meeting on the weekend." I didn't think much of it and just said, "Yeah, it's worth a few $1,000,000. We won't get such an amazing partnership so easily, so everyone's been working really hard." He pouted. I didn't know what else to say, so I was going to start my engine again when he asked if that meant getting a promotion as well. I guess so. "Promotion is expected," I said nonchalantly. He made that face again, the bitter one. I don't think they should be promoted that easily. I mean, I'm new here, and this is only for 2 of the teams. Kind of unfair, right? I told him that it wasn't unfair at all, mostly because everyone got a chance to showcase their skills. Every team got their own time, and promotions were done based on the employees' strengths and improvements. He made a face that said he didn't agree with me. "You must be excited because you work on the top floor, but that doesn't guarantee anything, really. I don't think you should be overconfident about this promotion." Didn't know what he meant. I was the CEO and the founder. There was no promotion for me to look forward to. I got a text from my assistant, so I told the neighbor that I was going to leave, but his head was already in the clouds. He ignored my greeting and went to his car. Then he sat inside like a statue for a few long minutes. We didn't talk after that. I was too busy to even notice him. I was sleeping in my office itself and rarely went home. Finally, the day came when I had a meeting. A parade was going to be held in the city, so I was sure that I might be late, even after living so close to the office. So as a precaution, I woke up really early and got ready for the presentation. As soon as I walked to my driveway, I found the back tire of my car slashed. The tire was obviously punctured, and there was no way this wasn't intentional. I was too mad and didn't understand why anyone would do this, especially on such an important day. Normally, I would have suspected the kids, but I came home around 12 a.m., by which time most of the kids are already in bed. It was highly unlikely that someone sneaked in after midnight just to slash my tires. The other thing was that I was on good terms with all the kids from the neighborhood. They wouldn't really do it without a good reason. Also, slashing usually causes a loud attention-grabbing noise. You have to do it with a certain precision to not cause such a sound and protect yourself from injury when you're doing it. The third thing was someone in my neighborhood knew my work routine too well. It was my neighbor. I quickly went inside and checked the surveillance camera footage. I had installed it in front of the driveway and my front door. He would have been a fool if he ignored it. My wall colors were gray and black, so it was easy to not notice it at once. I played the footage, and there it was, sneaking in like a little thief at 3 a.m. in the morning. It was indeed my neighbor. I don't know why he went with all the trouble to do this. I quickly called my assistant and told him to send me a car. I was the first one in the office. Nobody had arrived. I went to the office and took a 15-minute nap. After some time, we went over the arrangements and got ready for the meeting. The meeting went really well, and we got the partnership we so wanted. Everyone rejoiced. I told everyone in the team to go home early and to relax. We planned to have a company dinner the next day. My assistant asked me what happened to my car, and I told him everything. He was surprised and amused. We both understood that my neighbor probably didn't know that I was the founder and the CEO of the company. I asked my assistant to call my neighbor immediately in my office. I told him to specifically say that the CEO of the company wanted to see him. I wanted to make sure that my neighbor was indeed shaking in his boots as he arrived in my office. When he came in, I was standing in front of the glass window looking outside. "Do you know me?" I asked without turning. "No, I've heard of you. I'm just a new hire. Did I do something wrong?" he asked in his visibly shaky voice. I turned and waited to see the change on his face when he finally recognized me. I'm telling you, it was magnificent. The look he had. "You. Did the CEO call you too?" I was amused by his ignorance. Somewhere he must have known that he was messing with the wrong guy. Chuckled and asked, "What do you think?" The neighbor was in a perplexed state. He understood my question, but he didn't want to accept the possibility of me being the CEO. I decided to clear all the doubts that he was having at that moment. "Why are you lying? You know me very well. In fact, you slashed my car tires just last night at 3 a.m. So I'm sure nobody would do it without knowing each other." "Well, right, Mr. X?" I asked him. He said nothing, but his eyes revealed his helplessness. "How? Your name and the CEO's name, it's different. Only the last part sounds similar." Then it occurred to him. "Did you tell me a short name?" he asked. I didn't reply, but he understood how deeply he had buried himself in the grave because of his actions. Well, it's a classic example of messing around and finding out. Don't even think of defending yourself. I have CCTV camera footage to prove that it was you who damaged my tire. He started murmuring and rambling something that I couldn't quite hear. I asked him to speak up, and he told me that he just didn't want me to have that promotion because he was jealous of my position. I already knew that. He didn't even try to hide the bitter look on his face. There was no way I'd miss it. I told him that I'd be reporting it to the police. He would probably get probation, a fine. He would have to make restitution for the tires he had damaged. He pleaded with me not to report him. However, I'm not the kind of person who reasons with stupid people. I had only ever been friendly with him. He didn't deserve any kindness, and I was sure that if I didn't teach him a lesson, he'd probably do it again. Not now, but maybe later. I notified the police in front of him. I also told him that he'd have to immediately resign if I found him responsible for another such incident. After that, his only interaction with me was in the office when he greeted me. Other than that, we never talked again. When I started at my new company, we used all assigned parking spots in the adjacent parking garage, and I was given a spot in a building a couple of blocks away. When I got in early one morning and had to be let inside by security as the building was not yet unlocked, I talked with a security guard briefly, and this started a bit of a friendship. After a week or so, he asked why I always came through the front door instead of through the parking garage, and I explained my situation. He ended up giving me one of the extra spots that were assigned to the security staff. I was only allowed to park there Monday through Thursday as they needed this spot for cleaning crews on Friday. This spot is only about 20 feet from the pedestrian bridge to the building, so it's a pretty nice setup. We also have 2 company visitor spots in the same adjacent lot. However, they are on the top floor, along with the rest of the spots assigned to our company. It's exposed to the sun and require walking down 3 flights to get to the pedestrian bridge. We've had a senior engineer visiting from a different office for the last 2 weeks, parking in the visitor spot. On Tuesday, we went to our cars together and he saw where I was parked. Well, when I got to work yesterday, he was already in my parking spot. I headed up to one of the visitor spots and let him know that he needed to move his vehicle out of my spot or his car might be towed. We are right downtown and have so many people who park in this garage without permission. He told me that it was fine, don't worry about it. It was a company parking spot and that I could just stay in the visitor spot. I told him that I really didn't think it was a good idea and tried to explain, but he brushed me off. I followed up with an email letting him know that the spot was not leased by our company, but I just had permission to park there until a spot opened in the garage. I parked in my assigned spot in the other parking garage. Boss man doesn't like non-visitors parking in the visitor spot, so I was not able to stay there. And didn't worry about it, just like I was told. Well, come lunchtime, the senior engineer comes storming back into the office. Apparently, the security guard saw that the vehicle parked in my spot was not my crappy Civic, but rather a Tesla, and decided to have the vehicle towed. Not exactly sure what came of this, and I bet we will find out later today, but I'm happy that I sent the CYA email as senior engineer outranks me by a considerable margin, and I do not need someone thinking that I left him high and dry out of spite. I should note that while we have spots assigned to our company, each vehicle gets assigned its own spot. Occasionally, we will have people park in our assigned spots, and security will call our office to confirm if this was someone we were allowing to park there, or if this is someone parking improperly. So, if it had been a company spot, the senior engineer's assumption would have been correct. We got no such call, and security guard does not have my personal number. Update. Not the satisfying update I was hoping for at all. Apparently, the senior engineer called and complained to the building management. He explained the situation, and it turns out that the security did not have the authority to allow me to park in this spot. Sounds like the security guard got chewed out, and I'm really hoping this didn't impact his job. Lost my parking in the closed garage. The boss man is not upset with me, which is the only good thing about this. The senior engineer was complaining to anyone that would listen. He is such a victim. No idea who had to pay the tow fees, but I'm pretty confident that senior engineer didn't. Update 2. I was able to speak with the security guard on my way to lunch today. Apparently his boss didn't chew him out, and I guess that was passed on to senior douchebag to appease him. Yes, security guard was told that he could not give out that spot, but that was it. He was quite surprised when I told him what I had heard. I'm in a senior role at a service desk, and like everywhere else, if we see a ticket come in that has already been done or is a duplicate request, we just cancel the tickets and move on with our day. Well, we have this one user who was a vice president, and they are the type of person who thinks that the world revolves around them. So they would be the person to send in a ticket, then 5 minutes later send another ticket, and so on until there's like a dozen tickets in the system. Well, a few weeks ago, we introduced a new password policy, 18 characters, etc., with an additional policy that makes you change your password after a reset, and you can't use a password you used before. And this was a big change considering our previous policy was no requirements. Most users figured it out pretty well, and even the VP. Now, this is where the malicious compliance comes in. With the new password policy, it was also introduced that all tickets must be actioned before resolving them, and you can guess who brought this change in. So, the VP went on vacation for a bit, then came back and forgot their password, and like normal, they would send in a dozen or more tickets. Now, in the 5 minutes or so between their tickets, we would get 1 to 5 tickets to come in, and it takes about 10 minutes to go through those. So my team and I went through every ticket like we were told to do, and we were counting the number of times we reset the VP password because we knew this was going to come back on us. So, lo and behold, in the span of about an hour, we reset their password 11 times. This is when our manager comes in and says, I just got an email from the VP and they say you keep resetting their password. My manager is a good guy, and I reminded him of the new ticket policy. He chuckles and heads back to his office, and he forwards us an email with the subject, "Stop resetting my password." In the email, it says they had to change the password 12 times, and they're running out of passwords they can think of, and to stop resetting their password. I replied to the email and said, due to a new policy of tickets where we have to activate each one before resolving it, we had to reset your password a number of times. No less than an hour later, our department gets an email from the president that says, "We have reviewed one of your new ticket policies and believe this to not be the best use of your time, so we're going to ask you to recant this policy." Needless to say, we stopped the policy because it was dumb from the start, and surprisingly, the VP actually started sending fewer and fewer tickets.